The alarm blared at 4:15 a.m., and Maria's hand shot out from beneath the worn blanket to silence it before it could wake the children. For a moment, just one precious moment, she allowed herself to lie there, eyes closed, imagining a world where she could sleep until the sun rose. Then, like every morning for the past 3 years, she pushed herself up and began another day that most would find impossible. But what choice did she have? 3 small faces depended on her smile each morning, even when her body ached from exhaustion. If this story touches your heart, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories of extraordinary strength and resilience like Maria's. Maria slipped into the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face and staring at her reflection. At 32, the lines around her eyes told stories of both laughter and hardship. She'd once been told she had a smile that could light up a room. These days, that smile required more effort, but she practiced it now, watching how it transformed her tired face. Her children needed to see that smile, not the worry that lived behind it. The small apartment was quiet as she moved through her morning routine with practiced efficiency. Coffee brewing, lunches packed, clothes laid out. By 5 a.m., she was dressed in her hospital scrubs, ready for her first job of the day. She paused at each bedroom door. First, 8-year-old Elijah, sprawled across his bed, one arm hanging off the edge. His report card from last week was still pinned to the refrigerator, all A's except for that B+ in science. "We'll work on that," she had promised him, though finding the time seemed impossible. Next was 6-year-old Sophia's room, where her daughter slept curled around the stuffed elephant that had once belonged to Maria's mother. Sophia had her father's eyes, a thought Maria quickly pushed away. There was no room for those memories, not when the present demanded every ounce of her attention. Finally, 4-year-old Lucas, the baby who wasn't really a baby anymore, though she still thought of him that way. He slept with his thumb in his mouth, a habit she hadn't had the heart to break. The pediatrician said not to worry yet, but it was another item on her endless mental list of things that needed attention. Maria leaned down and kissed each forehead gently, whispering, "Mommy loves you," though they couldn't hear. Mrs. Guzman from next door would arrive at 6 a.m. to get them ready for school and daycare. The arrangement wasn't ideal, but Mrs. Guzman was kind and charged less than formal childcare would cost. The hospital was already bustling when Maria arrived for her shift as a nursing assistant. For the next 8 hours, she would empty bedpans, change linens, bathe patients, and do whatever else was needed. The work was physically demanding and often thankless, but Maria moved through it with a gentle efficiency that made her valuable to the nurses and doctors on her floor. "How do you always stay so positive?" Nurse Jacobs asked her one morning as they turned an elderly patient together. Maria smiled, that practiced smile that had become almost genuine through repetition. "My grandmother used to say that complaining about the rain doesn't keep you dry." What she didn't say was that positivity wasn't a choice, it was survival. Her children needed her strength, not her tears. Her shift ended at 2 p.m., giving her just enough time to catch the bus to her second job at Riverside Elementary School, where she worked as a cafeteria assistant until 5:30 p.m. The job paid less than the hospital but came with the priceless benefit of being at the same school Elijah and Sophia attended. She could see them during lunch periods, check their homework, and sometimes steal a few precious minutes of conversation before they headed to the after-school program. "Mom, Tyler has a new PlayStation, and his mom said I could come over to play sometime," Elijah told her one afternoon, his eyes bright with excitement. "That sounds fun, baby." "Let me check my schedule," Maria replied, knowing full well that her schedule offered no flexibility. But she would find a way, even if it meant swapping shifts or going without sleep. Her children's normality was worth any sacrifice. After the school kitchen closed, Maria would pick up Lucas from daycare, and they would have 2 hours together at home, her favorite part of the day. She'd help with homework, listen to stories about their day, and cook dinner. These moments sustained her, fueling her for what came next. At 7:30 p.m., Mrs. Guzman would return to watch the children while Maria worked her third job, cleaning offices in a downtown building until midnight. The work was solitary and mindless, allowing her thoughts to wander as she vacuumed carpets and emptied trash cans. Sometimes she thought about Robert, her ex-husband, who had walked out 4 years ago, overwhelmed by the responsibilities of parenthood and marriage. His child support payments were inconsistent at best, non-existent at worst. She had stopped counting on them long ago. Sometimes she thought about her own dreams, the nursing degree she'd started but never finished, the small house with a yard she'd always imagined for her family, the savings account that should have been growing for her children's education but instead remained empty as every dollar went to immediate needs. But mostly, she thought about tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. How long could she sustain this pace? How many years would pass before her children were old enough to understand the sacrifices she'd made? Would they resent the absences, the missed school plays, the birthday parties cut short because she had to get to work? The turning point came unexpectedly, on an ordinary Tuesday in April. Maria was at the hospital, helping an elderly patient named Ruth who had been admitted with pneumonia. As Maria adjusted her pillows, Ruth grabbed her hand with surprising strength. "You remind me of my daughter," Ruth said, her voice raspy from coughing. "Always rushing, always doing for others. She worked herself into an early grave, you know. Left behind 3 children who would have preferred more time with their mother than the things her money could buy." Maria felt the words like a physical blow. "I'm sure she was doing her best," she said defensively, thinking of her own situation. Ruth's eyes were kind but knowing. "Of course she was. We all are. But sometimes our best needs to be reconsidered." That night, as Maria mopped the floors of the office building, Ruth's words echoed in her mind. Was she making the right choices? Was there another way? The next morning, instead of rushing out the door, Maria woke her children 15 minutes early. They sat together at the small kitchen table, eating breakfast in their pajamas, something they rarely did. "I need to talk to you about something important," Maria said, looking at each of their sleepy faces. "Mommy works a lot, and I know that means I'm not always here when you might want me to be." "It's okay, Mom," Elijah said with the seriousness of a child who had grown up too quickly. "We know you have to work." "Yeah," Sophia added. "Mrs. Guzman says you're a superhero." Lucas, still too young to fully understand, simply climbed into her lap and laid his head against her chest. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not a superhero. I'm just your mom, trying to give you everything you need. But I've been thinking that maybe what you need most is more of me, not more things." That conversation was the first step in a journey that would reshape their lives. Maria made an appointment with a career counselor at the community college, who helped her explore options that would utilize her experience while requiring less of her time. She discovered a hospital program that would pay for her to complete her nursing degree while working reduced hours. It would mean tight finances for 2 years, but the long-term benefits would be life-changing: better pay, regular hours, and benefits that included college savings plans for the children. The transition wasn't easy. They moved to a smaller apartment to save money. Birthday presents became more modest. Cable TV was replaced with library books and board games. But something unexpected happened as their material world contracted, their emotional world expanded. Maria was home for dinner most nights. She volunteered in Sophia's classroom once a month. She joined Elijah's school's parent committee. She was there to witness Lucas's first successful bike ride without training wheels. 2 years later, when Maria walked across the stage to receive her nursing degree, her children cheered louder than anyone. That night, as they celebrated with a homemade cake, Elijah presented her with a card they had made. "We're proud of you, Mom," he said, his voice cracking with the first signs of adolescence. Inside the card, in childish handwriting, were the words that made every sacrifice worthwhile: "Thank you for keeping us smiling." Maria realized then that the journey had never really been about keeping them fed, clothed, and housed, though those things mattered. It had been about keeping joy alive in their hearts, about teaching them resilience and determination by example, about showing them that love could overcome any obstacle. As she looked at her children's faces, truly looked at them, without the haze of exhaustion that had clouded her vision for so long, she saw that they were happy. Not because they had everything they wanted, but because they had everything they needed: security, purpose, and a mother who would move mountains to keep them smiling. Years later, when people asked how she had managed it all, Maria would think back to those grueling days of 3 jobs and endless exhaustion. "I didn't do it perfectly," she would say. "But I did it with love," and in the end, that's what they remembered. And it was true. Her children grew into adults who understood the value of hard work but also the importance of balance. They pursued their passions with the same determination they had witnessed in their mother, but they also knew when to rest, when to play, and when to prioritize the people they loved. The legacy Maria created wasn't measured in wealth or possessions. It was measured in resilience, in compassion, and in the capacity for joy even in difficult circumstances. It was measured in 3 lives that carried forward her example of strength and sacrifice. Most importantly, it was measured in smiles, genuine smiles that came not from having an easy life, but from having the strength to find happiness even when life was hard. If Maria's journey has moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us of the extraordinary strength of ordinary people. Remember, sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones living quietly next door, working 3 jobs just to keep their children smiling.